They found her where the city forgot to look, a field of dust and silence just beyond the shimmering lights of Los Angeles. Her body lay there like a secret someone wanted buried twice, once in the ground and once in memory. Her name was Margaret Lane, 23 years old, a dancer from Nevada who came to California chasing the illusion everyone here called opportunity. She was the kind of woman whose laughter made people turn their heads, whose face belonged on a movie poster, and whose dreams, like so many others in this city, were brighter than the reality waiting for her. For weeks before her death, she had been seen in nightclubs, at producer dinners, in the company of men who wore expensive suits and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. She told her roommate that something wasn't right, that she'd been offered a part in a film that didn't exist, that a photographer had taken pictures she never consented to. But in 1940s Hollywood, women like Margaret were easy to promise and easier to discard. When she disappeared, no one called the police right away. The studios said she was away filming. Her friends said she'd run off with someone rich. But when her body was found, cut in half, drained of blood, her face rearranged into something grotesquely deliberate, the fantasy cracked open, and the city saw what it had been hiding beneath its golden surface. Reporters rushed to the scene before the detectives did. Within hours, her name was in every paper. The girl from Silver Valley, they called her, because she once danced at a club by that name. The photographs were too gruesome to print, yet the tabloids described every detail, feeding a nation's morbid hunger. The police began to dig. They found traces of alcohol, a rare anesthetic, and theater makeup under her nails. They learned that her last known location was a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, a house that hosted private gatherings for men whose power could silence almost anyone. Witnesses spoke of a doctor, a quiet man with steady hands and a fascination for faces. But nothing made sense. Leads evaporated. Evidence disappeared. Every new clue led back to the same locked door, the film industry itself. As days turned into weeks, Los Angeles grew restless. The studio bosses wanted the case buried, the police wanted it closed, and the public wanted a monster to blame. Yet the more they searched for one, the clearer it became that the monster was not a person, but the system that created her, used her, and threw her away. And somewhere in the glittering chaos of Hollywood, someone was reading the morning paper, seeing Margaret's face beneath the headline, and smiling, because they knew the story was only half told. By the time the sun rose over Los Angeles that January morning, the city was already drowning in whispers. Taxi drivers spoke of a girl cut in two. Waitresses served coffee to reporters who scribbled faster than they could think. And somewhere in the distance, the faint echo of camera shutters marked the beginning of Hollywood's most infamous performance, a crime scene dressed like a stage. The newspapers spared no mercy. "Beautiful dancer found mutilated," read one. "The smile from hell," said another. The press invented stories before the police could confirm facts. They turned her into a myth, part tragedy, part spectacle, and the city devoured every word. People wanted to believe it was the work of a madman, a drifter, someone from outside their glittering world, because if it wasn't, then the rot was inside. Detective Raymond Holt was assigned to the case, a man who had seen every kind of cruelty but still wasn't prepared for this. The scene was too clean, too calculated. Whoever had done it knew anatomy, precision, and performance. The cuts were surgical. The pose was intentional. It wasn't rage. It was art. A message, written in flesh. As he sifted through her few belongings, a torn photograph, a lipstick tube, and a letter addressed only with the word promise, Holt began to understand that Margaret Lane hadn't simply been murdered. She had been displayed. Rumors spread faster than evidence. Some said she was killed by a jealous lover. Others whispered about secret Hollywood screen tests that never reached the studios. A journalist claimed she'd been involved with a director who liked to film women in their sleep. No one could prove anything, but everyone wanted to be part of the story. The police interviewed more than 200 people. Friends, dancers, photographers, doctors. They all swore they barely knew her. Yet somehow, every one of them had her phone number written somewhere. In matchbooks, on cocktail napkins, in the margins of scripts. Holt followed one clue to a medical clinic hidden behind a row of palm trees on Wilshire Boulevard. The doctor there, a refined man named Henry Crane, denied ever meeting her. But his nurse hesitated, just long enough for the detective to notice the flicker in her eyes. Later, he would learn that Crane specialized in cosmetic reconstructions for actresses who couldn't afford scandal. Still, no evidence tied him to the crime. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just whispers. And the whispers were everywhere. In studio corridors, in smoky bars, in the trembling voices of women who said too little and knew too much. Weeks passed, then months. The city's obsession turned to exhaustion. Other headlines came, other tragedies replaced hers. But for Holt, the case clung like the smell of rain on concrete, impossible to wash away. Every time he saw a billboard with a smiling actress, he thought of Margaret's frozen grin and the message behind it. Because deep down, he knew the truth that no one wanted to admit. Hollywood didn't kill Margaret Lane out of hatred. It killed her out of habit. For more than a decade, the name Margaret Lane lingered in police archives like a ghost no one dared to touch. Her file sat in a drawer marked Unsolved, collecting dust beside the failures of a city that preferred amnesia to justice. The detectives who once chased her killer had retired, died, or simply forgotten. But in 1958, a single envelope arrived at the Los Angeles Police Department, yellowed, unmarked, and sealed with something that looked like dried blood. Inside was a photograph. A woman in a white dress stood beside a man in a suit, his arm resting gently on her shoulder. The handwriting on the back said only, "She wanted to tell the truth." The man was Dr. Henry Crane. By then, Crane had become a respected name. A surgeon for the stars, operating out of a private mansion clinic in Beverly Hills. His patients were actresses whose faces needed adjusting, whose pasts needed erasing. He was famous for his discretion. No one spoke ill of him. In Hollywood, silence was a form of currency. When detectives reopened the file, they found that Crane had served as a military surgeon during the war. He specialized in reconstructive procedures, in rebuilding what had been destroyed. His precision, his calm detachment, and his fascination with human faces made him a legend, and a perfect suspect. As they began to dig, the pattern emerged. Missing girls, quiet settlements, destroyed medical records. There were whispers that Crane had experimented on women who couldn't pay, that he'd used their fear as anesthesia. No one ever reported him, not because they didn't know, but because his clients were too powerful to cross. Then came the break. A retired nurse from Crane's clinic contacted the police. Her hands shook as she spoke. She told them about a night in January 1947, the night Margaret Lane arrived. She wasn't there for surgery, the nurse said. She was there to confront him. She had found out that Crane was blackmailing studio executives with the confessions and photographs of his clients, women disfigured and remade in his hidden rooms. The confrontation turned violent. Crane injected her with a sedative, the same anesthetic found in her system. And when she tried to scream, he silenced her. What happened next, even the nurse couldn't describe. She only remembered the sound of water running and Crane whispering, "She'll be beautiful forever." When the police finally came for him, Henry Crane was already dead, found slumped over his desk, a glass of whiskey half finished, and a small leather notebook open beside him. In it, he had written only fragments, surgical notes, cryptic phrases, and a final entry dated the week of his death. She believed truth could cleanse what fame had infected. I gave her perfection. The world gave her a headline. The coroner ruled it a heart attack. The case was marked solved posthumously. Newspapers printed his name once more, this time beside Margaret's. Two ghosts bound together in a city built on illusions. But those who knew Hollywood understood better. Dr. Crane wasn't an anomaly, he was a reflection. Because the real monster of Silver Valley wasn't the man with the scalpel. It was the world that kept giving him faces to cut.